All right, welcome everyone. So glad to see you today. Outstanding. Very good. All right, so today we're going to be talking about type 3 diabetes, right? Which is going to be super exciting. We're going to be talking about what is diabetes, what is type 3 diabetes, what is the symptoms of type 3 diabetes, how it was or how it came together because it's brand new. Most people are just finding out about type 3 diabetes, what causes type 3 diabetes, and how your body can heal type 3 diabetes. So we're super excited about that. Looking forward to it tonight. Hopefully you came with your notebooks or whatever you use to be able to study, or your listening ears. If you got any questions, please make sure you subscribe to our station. It's very important that you subscribe. It helps you receive notifications whenever we go live. It's also going to help you to be able to ask any questions that you have, because once we get to 1,000 subscribers, which we're going to do, once we get to 1,000 subscribers, then you're going to have to pay to be able to ask questions. So I get them in now while you can for free. That's the love, like, for real. So make sure that you do that. Also, these are every night. Our class is every night, Sunday through Friday. We have live classes every single night. Tuesday is going to be meditation, and Friday is creation series. So it's extremely powerful. The other days is pure, what you would call physical health. But they're going to be great classes, each and every class that I have. The full replays are going to be on Patreon only for those that want to do, that are on my Patreon. And you have to subscribe to a tier in order to be able to watch those videos. So please make sure that you do get on there. It helps us. It helps us to be able to provide services and help other people as well as you, and be able to continue doing these videos and sharing with people and keeping this thing moving. Okay, so the more support, the better. Share it with everybody you know. Share it with your family. Share it with your friends. Share it with everyone you know. Don't keep the knowledge to yourself. Share it. That's the key. That is the key ingredient. Making sure that you share. Okay. So again, make sure you subscribe. Become a part of the show to be able to watch the full replays. Again, you have to subscribe to the Patreon. And super excited to see you all here. Just want to thank all of the people that have subscribed so far. We appreciate you on our YouTube, and those of you that are Patreon members, kudos, outstanding. We love you. I'm just so glad that you're able to do that as well. All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and start with the disclaimer, and then I'll be right back to you to be able to watch the class.
Disclaimer. The information contained in this video is intended as an information resource only and is not to be used or relied upon for any diagnostic or treatment purposes. The video's information does not create any patient-physician relationship. Dawood Yisrael makes no representations about the accuracy or suitability of this content, as scientific and medical information updates and changes daily as more substantial information is discovered. Dawood Yisrael and any business associated during this video shall not in any event be liable for any direct or indirect damages, losses, injuries, or liability whatsoever suffered as a result of your use or misuse of this video's content. Use of this video is at the viewer's sole risk.
Hi, Isola here. I just want to thank Brother Dawi for his wonderful health presentation today, and it just reinforced the knowledge that I already knew, that let food be thy medicine, okay? And if you are facing a challenge or you want to change your diet or lifestyles, make sure you take one of his upcoming program events.
Thank you.
All right, so with that, we're going right into our type 1 or type 3 diabetes. And this is such a powerful course because, like I said, most people have type 3 diabetes, but they never knew what it was. So what is type 3 diabetes? Type 3 diabetes is a proposed link between Alzheimer's disease and type 1 and type 2 diabetes. It's not a medical term or recognized condition at the time of that, whatever this writing was, but it's used in research to study the causes of Alzheimer's. So in other words, the scientists are just finding out about this type 3 diabetes. This is very important because it's dealing with Alzheimer's. And, contrary to most people that understand, Alzheimer's and dementia those are diseases that will actually cause you to die. So I want you to understand how important it is to stop Alzheimer's in its tracks right now before you get it. But if you have it, we can also reverse it, or your body can reverse it if you give it the proper nutrients. The issue is once a person gets Alzheimer's or diabetes, they usually get caught in a routine from their past. And because of that, it's hard to get them to do things that are going to be necessary in order for them to reverse it. They're not even going to understand that. So therefore, it's better for you to cut it, nip it at the bud before you get it. It's extremely important to do that, okay? So again, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe so that you can ask questions. You can type in the chat or anything like that, okay? So the next thing I wanted to bring up was the fact that it's not a medical, no. Type 3 diabetes is thought to occur when brain neurons can't respond to insulin, which is important for learning and memory. Some researchers believe insulin deficiency is a key factor in Alzheimer's cognitive decline. So therefore, if your body's not producing insulin, it's going to lead to Alzheimer's. So a person has type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes, you can start looking, if you don't die from that, you can start looking for Alzheimer's disease coming up, right? So it's very important to get that's why you need to watch the video I produced, type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes. If you miss those, you need to watch them, okay? Now, the next thing is, I apologize. What is diabetes? Type 3 diabetes is a term used unofficially to describe the concept that Alzheimer's disease is linked to insulin resistance in the brain. Insulin resistance, okay? We just went over that in type 2 diabetes, right? Insulin resistance in the brain, essentially meaning the brain cells become unable to properly utilize insulin, leading to cognitive decline similar to the effects of diabetes in other parts of the body, okay? It's considered a diabetes of the brain and is not formally recognized medical diagnosis. So your doctors aren't going to know how to deal with this. So it's very important that you watch this video, all right? From the beginning to the end. It's very important that you watch this video because like they said, the doctors do not consider this a diagnosis, but the science has already proven that this is true, okay? And what I'm going to share with you tonight works. So it's very important that you pay close attention to everything that I'm sharing with you, okay? So connection to Alzheimer's. Researchers believe that impaired insulin signaling in the brain could play a significant role in the development of Alzheimer's disease, hence the association with type 3 diabetes. Mechanism. When brain cells become resistant to insulin, they can't effectively utilize glucose. Now remember, when I talked about before, we talked about the balance oil, didn't we? And remember those cells? And the membrane, if the membrane is messed up, it's not going to do what? Receive nutrients easily, and it's not going to let waste out easily. So this happens in the brain also, okay? So they can't effectively utilize glucose for energy, which may lead to neuronal damage and cognitive impairment, just like any other blood cells. But this is happening in your brain, and there's a brain barrier. There's a blood-brain barrier in your brain that stops things from coming into your brain, which is a good thing. However, it also stops things from coming out. And so you have to learn how to be able to get through this barrier and get things out of there so that you will be able to be healed, okay? Whenever we're dealing with this issue here, mostly we're going to be dealing with the pineal and the throat chakra. Mostly the throat chakra, though. It's your throat chakra that's off mostly when you get Alzheimer's or you're getting this type 3 diabetes. It's dealing with the throat chakra. And I'm explaining to you, remember the throat chakra is from the throat. Oh yeah, I haven't taught you all this yet. But the throat chakra is from the throat to here, right? So it's dealing with the eyes, the nose, the lymph nodes in the back of the ears, all of that. We're going to be dealing with that, right? When you're talking about this, as well as the brain, which is going to be your what? Pineal, okay? And you're going to understand it when you start healing it, because I've already done mine. What I'm saying is when you start healing it, or when your body starts healing it, you're going to understand why I'm saying it's going to be all in the throat chakra and your thyroid and all. That's why it's important not to do those goitrogenic compounds too, because you need to be able to heal utilizing, it's going to drop into your thyroid area. So you need to be able to have a proper thyroid that's functioning to be able to heal this also. All right. So this is extremely important. Like, this is not something to play with. Serious. And like I said, you do not want Alzheimer's. I've seen people with Alzheimer's. I've seen people with dementia. That's something you do not want to play with. Right. So we want to beat it at the head. Okay. Now, what we know. Sorry about that. What we know about type 1 and type 2 diabetes, but what is we know about type 1 and type 2 diabetes, right? That's what they're saying. We know about those. But what is type 3 diabetes? And this is an excellent question. What is it? Right? So Alzheimer's disease is increasingly being referred to as type 3 diabetes. Here we look at the evidence. Now, this is what the doctors have not accepted yet. However, this is the evidence that has shown up, right? So the incidence of diabetes mellitus has reached epidemic levels in recent years, meaning, in other words, Alzheimer's is at an all-time high, is what they're saying, affecting 1 in every 10 adults globally in 2021. 90% of these individuals have type 2 diabetes, right, which is characterized by two defects, namely resistance to the metabolic actions of insulin in combination with an inability of the pancreatic islet beta cells to secrete enough insulin to overcome this resistance, meaning you're not getting enough insulin to be able to break the barrier of the resistance of the insulin, right, or the insulin resistance. Right, type 2 diabetes is often associated with overweight or obesity. I told you, every single disease, everything we deal with, this always shows up. Obesity, meaning what? Lose weight. There's nothing cute. There's nothing great. There's nothing, anything nice about being overweight. As a matter of fact, being overweight is not good at all. There's nothing good about it, right? I don't care how they try to make you feel cute being overweight. You think you got a big butt because you overweight, this, and that. Or you want to be big like a brother wants to be big and do that extra protein, but you overweight. Ain't nothing cute about it. Nothing. It is unhealthy, period. You can't show me one sign of being overweight, right, or obese, and that's good. And you can't show it to me. It don't exist. It's always a problem. And so we want to get rid of that extra weight on us. We want to be in our right frame. We want to be eating properly so that we're inside of our right frame, right? And that is what you're designed to be in. That's going to be long length of days in life for you. All right. So type 2 diabetes is often associated with overweight or obesity, and type 1 as well, which plays a role. No, because type 1, you lose weight. You're underweight a lot of times, which plays a role in the development of the insulin resistance. Over the past few years, it has become apparent that not every person with type 2 diabetes is the same. For example, a recent study that involved over 400,000 individuals with type 2 diabetes identified 8 distinct subgroups or clusters based on expression of the specific sets of genes. Another study of over 1 million individuals identified 12 different clusters of genes associated with type 2 diabetes. As expected, many of these genes relate to beta cells and adipose cell function, as well as body weight overall. Type 1 diabetes, in contrast, is caused by an autoimmune process that destroys the beta cells, okay? So remember, type 2 diabetes is inflammatory, right? It's inflammatory. Type 1 diabetes is autoimmune, okay? Type 3 diabetes, just to let you know, is also inflammatory, okay? Type 1 diabetes is autoimmune, but we're going to get your body to heal that as well, right? That's where the balance oil comes in, okay? So type 1 diabetes, in contrast, is caused by the autoimmune process that destroys the beta cells, thus mandating insulin administration for survival. Rare forms of diabetes also include pancreatic diabetes, usually caused by surgical removal of the pancreas, right? Which makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Hence the beta cells. Furthermore, some individuals have been reported to have what is now called type 1.5 diabetes. This is why I always tell y'all, I don't always tell y'all, but I'm telling y'all, do not remove don't get anything in your body removed if you can help it. Like, when I say you can help it, I'm talking about, like, only if you're about to die do you get something removed from your body. And I still don't even agree with that, because I think you can heal it anyway. But you guys gotta be you just have to be what do you call that? disciplined. You have to be disciplined to be able to do it. But I say, don't get nothing removed from your body, because when you do, this is what's going to happen. Furthermore, some individuals have been reported to have what is now called type 1.5 diabetes, which has features of both type 1 diabetes and type 2, meaning they are autoimmune and they have inflammatory issues. They have both. However, what is common to all these forms of diabetes is high blood sugar. Please, if you're just coming in, please make sure that you subscribe, right, to the channel, so that you can be able to chat with us and receive notifications when we're going live. However, what is common to all of these forms of diabetes is high blood sugar or glucose levels. Therefore, they are more accurately described as diabetes mellitus, which is derived from the Greek word for siphon and the Latin word for honey. So it's a honey siphon, right? Sucking up sugar, in other words, respectively, because some of that sugar the blood is passing through the kidneys into the urine, making it sweet. In contrast to these well-established types of diabetes, some researchers have suggested the existence of another form of diabetes, which is type 3 diabetes. Okay, so who has? Researchers, right? Listen to the research a lot of times. The researchers be on point. And then, in other words, just let me share something with you. And I want you to just think about it. A lot of times you'll hear the medical industry say, no, the holistic people aren't right. They're wrong. And then 10 years later, oh no, they were right. And now they're utilizing the same system that the holistic doctors are using. So you should be listening to what the holistic doctors are saying, right? Because we're studying the research, early research that works. And what I'm going to share with you tonight works, I promise you. This new term is going to get rid of your brain fog and everything. This new term is being used, or it's going to allow your body to get rid of the brain fog, rather. This new term is being used by some to describe Alzheimer's disease, which is also reaching epidemic levels, affecting 1 in 9 people. 1 in 9. So every 10 people, 1 is going to get it. Right? Actually, every 9 people, 1 is going to get it over the age of 65. However, in contrast to type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, type 3 diabetes, or what's known as Alzheimer's disease, is characterized by deposition of abnormal proteins in the brain. So abnormal proteins, right? These are amino acids creating proteins that are not correct. Could be from what you're eating that doesn't belong in the body. Not could be, but of course it is from what you're eating that doesn't belong in the body. It's in the brain, causing neural degeneration and resulting in dementia, right? There are a number of similarities between type 3 diabetes or Alzheimer's disease and type 2 diabetes that have led to the belief that there is a relationship between these diseases. Okay, so there are a number of similarities between type 2 and Alzheimer's disease. Like I said, both of them are what? Inflammatory. So there's a relationship between them. For example, some studies have shown that individuals with poorly controlled type 2 diabetes, therefore higher levels of blood glucose, have a 2 to 3-fold increased risk of cognitive impairment that progresses to dementia. And a majority of those with Alzheimer's have either type 2 diabetes or elevated fasting blood glucose levels. Furthermore, one of the abnormal proteins that is deposited in the brain of individuals with Alzheimer's disease, amyloid, has been found at usually high levels in pancreatic islets of those with type 2 diabetes. So if you have type 2 diabetes is relatively easy for your body to reverse. You should not have type 2 diabetes. And when we studied type 2 diabetes, you saw where type 2 diabetes now can be reversed within what? 1 week. 1 week. So type 2 diabetes, which I showed you on the type 2 diabetes, how to allow your body to heal it, in that it's the medical and research stated that it could be reversed in 1 week. Get off that insulin and start changing your living and do the things that I've been teaching you in those videos, and you will be able to heal yourself. Your body will heal itself. There's no reason for anyone to have type 2 diabetes, period. At all. There's no reason at all on this planet for anyone to have type 2 diabetes. Period. Right? So if you have it, then you have a 2 to 3-fold increased risk of cognitive impairment and progress to dementia. And the majority of those with Alzheimer's disease have either type 2 diabetes or elevated fasting glucose elevated fasting blood glucose levels. Now I know I don't, because I just came back right from the 21-day fast and I got my sugar tested every single week. So my blood sugar is perfect. I know that, even when I'm eating and when I'm not eating. Right? So I'm good on that. I fixed that. If I had it, it's gone. I don't know because I never tested for it, but I didn't have the problems of type 2 diabetes that I'm aware of. Okay? Or type 1. I don't have either one. Now, but if you do, you need to get yours down, and we can do that. And see, there's a lot of things, but fasting is going to be that number one thing. That water fast, and I got a special on my water fasting right now, which I'm going to be promoting coming soon. But I got a special coming up on my water fasting prices right now, and I would take advantage of it. Even if you're not ready for it, you can buy it and you can use it at any time you want. But you're going to need to do the long-term water fast. There's no way around it, right? And my key thing is invest in yourself. The reason most people are considered broke or poor or don't have no money, right, is because they don't invest in themselves. If you can't invest in yourself, there's a problem. It's a serious problem with you, right? So furthermore, one of the abnormal proteins that is deposited in the brains of the individuals with Alzheimer's disease, amyloid, has been found at unusually high levels in the pancreatic islets of those with type 2 diabetes, although not in their brains. Okay. However, whether these correlative studies indicate a causal relationship between these diseases has not been demonstrated, nor that the relationship with elevated blood sugar levels. But they are, like, everything is related, because everything is really one disease or one issue, really, right? It's your nutrition. So they're all related. There are also a number of distinctions between Alzheimer's disease and type 2 diabetes that decrease enthusiasm for the type 3 diabetes hypothesis. Okay. However, disease associated changes in neural activity and blood flow in different parts of the brain are not identical in those with AD as compared with type 2 diabetes. So they're saying that type 2 diabetes and type 3 diabetes have nothing to do with each other. Okay? That's what they're saying. Additionally, there are differences in some of the blood markers of the two diseases. While the findings to date indicate that there may be some sort of association between the two diseases, insight into an actual mechanism has also remained elusive. However, the available data does support the existence of one mechanism that is common to both type 3 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, or Alzheimer's disease and type 2 diabetes, that being the presence of insulin resistance. Insulin is the main hormone that increases the uptake of glucose from the blood into tissues such as skeletal muscle. Therefore, insulin resistance is associated with increased level of blood glucose in type 2 diabetes. However, the brain also uses glucose as an energy source, which we learned that what? In the health class, if you were in our health class, you learned that what? Our brains use glycogen as fuel or food, right? To fuel it. So we use glycogen, which is sugar, right? Or glucose. This is what we use for the brain, as well as the body, but the brain also, okay? So that's why it's saying that, because carnivores, animals that eat meat, they use fats and proteins to fuel their body, to fuel their brain. We use glycogen, they use fats and proteins, right? One thing letting you know we're not carnivores. So it says A2D, that being the present in insulin resistant. Insulin is the main hormone that increases the uptake of glucose from the blood into the tissues, such as skeletal muscle. I dealt with that already. However, the brain also uses glucose as energy source, and insulin resistance in the brain may therefore contribute to decreased neurological function in type 2 diabetes. Why? Because the sugar or glucose that feeds the ATP or the mitochondria, because it cannot get into the brain, what's going to happen? Your brain don't have no more power. So it starts breaking down. Your brain has to have a constant form of power or energy, and that's through glycogen. Okay? That's why even when we fast, your muscles and fat, the muscle and fat tissue has to be turned into glucose or glycogen in order for it to work in your body. That's what a ketosis and autophagy is about. right? But they have to turn into glucose. You can't eat the fats, and your brain can't take the fats and proteins. Your body can't live off, so it has to convert it from fat into glucose for you to be able to get it, right? So that's what we eat is glucose, glycogen. Now, let's continue. Furthermore, insulin resistance has been clearly demonstrated in the brains from individuals with Alzheimer's disease, even in the absence of type 2 diabetes, meaning you don't have to have type 2 diabetes to have type 3 diabetes. Key point. Most notably, one key brain region that was found to be affected was the hippocampus, which is required for memory consolidation and has also been directly implicated in the cognitive decline associated with AD. Okay. One additional possible mechanism that may link AD to type 2 diabetes relates to the increased progression to dementia seen in those with higher blood glucose levels. Again, while not understood at the molecular level, this relationship might help to explain preclinical, therefore animal studies suggesting that treatment of individuals with Alzheimer's disease using glucogen-like peptide 1 receptor agonists, therefore Ozempic, right? But you don't want to use Ozempic. Don't be playing around with this stuff. I'm going to do a whole video dealing with these medicines and their side effects. And then I'm going to have the video showing you how these happy-go-lucky people are bouncing around to try to get you to go use this stuff. But I'm going to deal with that in a minute. So peptide 1 receptor antagonists, right, may slow down or delay cognitive decline in association with their known effects to reduce blood glucose levels or perhaps neural inflammation responses. However, of note, these findings have not been confirmed in the very few studies on humans with AD, okay, with Alzheimer's disease. Although there are some similarities between Alzheimer's disease and type 2 diabetes, whether Alzheimer's disease should be considered to be a novel form of diabetes, type 3 diabetes remains an unproven hypothesis in their minds. Notably, such hypotheses are incredibly difficult to prove, with confirmation requiring brain samples from affected individuals, while animal models of both diseases suffer from notable limitations. Furthermore, these hypotheses do not take into account the rare but known genetic causes of the disease. However, despite the names that are used, focusing on the prevention and treatment of both Alzheimer's disease and type 2 diabetes should remain a high priority given their global prevalence. Okay? So that is what it is, right? All right, cool. Now, this one is, what is the link between Alzheimer's disease and type 3 diabetes? Let's look at this. Researchers have known for several years that being overweight and having type 2 diabetes can increase the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease, but now they're beginning to talk another form of diabetes, type 3 diabetes. This form of diabetes is associated with Alzheimer's disease. So they already told you overweight, which they said before, and having type 2 diabetes can increase the risk. But you don't have to have you don't have to have that to get type 3 diabetes. Type 3 diabetes occurs when neurons in the brain become unable to respond to insulin. We dealt with that already. This is what I want to deal with. But how is this tied to Alzheimer's gene? So they say there's an Alzheimer's gene, right? So a new study from the Mayo Clinic neuroscientist and Mary Lowell Leary, professor of medicine, found that the culprit is the variant of the Alzheimer's gene known as APOE4. The team found that APOE4, which is present in approximately 20% of the general population and more than half of Alzheimer's cases, is responsible for interrupting how the brain processes insulin. Now, my question is, do you think you just are born with, or you just have this APOE4? No. It comes from what? Diet. And if you're born with it, that means because what your parents were eating, they passed it down. But can you turn it off? Yes, you can turn the gene off. Don't ever get caught up in this gene theory thing where you're stuck with it because you got genes. They make money off of that. The team found that APOE4, which is present in approximately 20% of the general population and more than half of Alzheimer's cases, is responsible for interrupting how brain processes insulin. Mice with the APOE4 gene showed insulin impairment, particularly in old age. Also, a high-fat diet could accelerate the process in middle-aged mice with the gene. So a high fat, why? Because our brain can't digest it. We can't take in high fat. right? We need low fats. We need mostly sugar is what we eat. Fruit, right? Whole fruit. A high-fat diet could accelerate the process in middle-aged mice with the gene. The gene and the peripheral insulin resistance caused by the high-fat diet together induced insulin resistance in the brain, Dr. Bew said. Oh man, I ain't got no water in here. All right, guys, sorry about that. I do apologize. So we're on type 3 diabetes again. Subscribed if you have not subscribed. Please make sure that you do so that you can chat with us, ask any questions that you might have or anything like that. Excuse me. So with that, I had to get some water, man. I had to. Let me take a sip. I wanted to get back to y'all so bad and make sure that y'all were on point. I didn't want to hold you up, so I do apologize for that. Very rare that that's going to happen, right? So, again, also a high-fat diet could accelerate the process in middle-aged mice with gene. The gene and the peripheral insulin resistance cause the high-fat diet together induce insulin resistance in the brain. So, high-fat diet, right, together with induced insulin resistance in the brain, okay? So, that's not good. It's not what we want, okay? The team went on to describe how it all works in the neurons. They found that the APOE4 protein produced by the gene can bind, I guess that's the amyloid, right? Because they said that protein is the one that was produced in the last article. But I don't know if it is or not. But they said the APOE4 was a gene, but now they're saying it's a protein, and they said before that was an amyloid, right? They said it was amyloid, I believe it was. Produced by the gene can bind more aggressively to the insulin receptors on the surface of the neurons than its normal counterpart. APOE3, as if playing a game of musical chairs, the APO. Okay, so it can bind to this one, right? It's saying, hold on, let me make sure. I want to read that again. They found that the APOE4 protein produced by the gene can bind more aggressively to insulin receptors on the surface of neurons than its normal counterpart, APOE3. Okay. As if playing a game of musical chairs, the APOE4 protein outcompetes the normal protein and blocks the receptor, right? So what does that sound? What does that remind you of? Let me see if anybody's been paying attention to the classes. What does this remind you of? I want to see if y'all caught it. Please put it in the chat, right? What does that remind you of? Anyone? I don't know if y'all saw Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but anyone? All right. So the APOE4 protein outcompetes the normal protein and blocks the receptor. APOE4 goes on to do lasting damage to brain cells after blocking the receptor. The sticky APOE4 protein begins to clump and becomes toxic, okay? So it starts developing faster. It's starting to get more receptors or attack more or attached to more of the receptors, and then it becomes sticky and starts blocking the receptors, right? So after it becomes sticky, the protein begins to clump and become toxic, right? Now it's going to become toxic. Further, once the protein enters the interior of the neuron, the clumps get trapped with the cell's machinery, impeding the receptors from returning to the neuron surface to do their work. The insulin signal processing gets increasingly more impaired, starving brain cells. Remember, now they can't get in what? The membrane. They can't get in there, and so the membrane is damaged. Now what's going to happen? We got issues. The receptors are damaged. Now it can't what? Get that glucose that it needs, as it says, and it does what? Starves them. So that's exactly what I was saying when I was reading the last one, right? Now, what does this remind you of? Does anybody know? If y'all been paying attention to my videos, been watching my videos, you should know this is acting just like cancer. So remember, cancer cells are they look like normal cells. The body thinks they're normal cells. But remember, they use another form of I can't remember the name of the word, what the word is called. But in other words, they don't use the same form of metabolic process, I guess it is, or whatever, in order for them to regenerate. Or they pull oxygen, remember, but they use a faster form that makes them be able to burn up sugar faster, right? And then they can create faster because of that, but it's less efficient. It takes more sugar to create less ATP. Remember that? This is the same idea. Remember what it says here. It says they can bind more aggressively to insulin receptors. The APOE4 can bind more aggressively to insulin receptors on the surfaces of neurons than its normal counterpart, the normal cell, or the normal protein APOE3. Right? So now it thinks the receptor thinks it's APOE3. It's taking it on, but it's growing faster. It's doing the same thing. It's almost moving just like cancer. It's the same idea, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but I believe it's the same concept. It's doing the same thing. This study has furthered our understanding of the gene that's the strongest genetic risk factor known for Alzheimer's disease. Now, the difference is this is starving. It's doing the same thing cancer is doing. It starves the brain cells, but what does cancer do? Cancer starves the body. Period. It takes all the air. It starves the entire body. It takes the air. It takes it takes the oxygen or the spirit. It takes the sugar, right? It takes the fats and the protein. It takes everything. That's what cancer does. This right here, it takes the sugar. It blocks the sugar, right? And starves the cells, right? So remember, that's why I was saying everything ends up in cancer a lot of times. Because when you start getting these things happening, this is APOE4 is not supposed to, if it's supposed to be in your body, it's not supposed to act this way. And I think it's a mutation, which means you're eating the wrong things, right? This study has furthered our understanding of the gene that's the strongest genetic risk factor known for Alzheimer's disease. Says Dr. Boo, who adds that ultimately the finding may personalize treatment for patients. For instance, an insulin nasal spray, don't do that. Do not do that. Or a similar treatment might be significantly more helpful for patients who don't have the APOE4 gene. Patients who have the gene may need additional medications to help the cognitive decline. We're going to heal it. We're going to reverse it with food. Right? Now we're going to deal with symptoms. So what are the symptoms of type 3 diabetes? Type 3 diabetes or Alzheimer's or dementia is a theoretical condition that's not yet recognized by the medical community. We don't care. That don't mean nothing to us, right? However, some scientists use the term to describe Alzheimer's disease, which is characterized by dementia symptoms. These symptoms include difficulty with daily tasks, memory loss, confusion, difficulty understanding visual images, difficulty joining conversations, mood or personality changes, forgetting important dates or events, repeating questions in a short period, having a hard time paying bills, becoming confused driving to a favorite location. And when it comes to a hard time paying the bills, it's not you have a hard time paying bills because you just don't feel like paying them or you can't pull up the money. It's because you forget about them. That's what they're saying. Okay? So this is key right here. All right? These are things when you start knowing you going to have you in that direction. We want to bring our cognitive skills back up. Okay? We want to do that. Now, what is the cause of type 3 diabetes, right? Type 3 diabetes, also known as 3C diabetes mellitus, can be caused by a number of factors, including pancreas damage, okay? Pancreas damage. Damage to the pancreas can prevent it from producing enough insulin or from producing insulin that the body can respond to properly. This can be caused by conditions like chronic pancreatitis, right? Cystic fibrosis, exocrine pancreatic cancer, or having your pancreas removed. So whenever the pancreas is being messed with, that's going to cause the problem. Right? Now, get out of that water. Insulin resistance, insulin resistance in brain cells can impair memory and learning. This can be caused by a variant of the Alzheimer gene APO4, which can interfere with brain cells' ability to use insulin. Reduce blood flow to the brain, which can impair the supply of essential nutrients. Okay, so that can also do it. Now, other risk factors: diet, including a low fiber diet and high intake of calories, sugar, and fat, lack of physical activity, family history of diabetes, genetics, exposure to stress, low socioeconomic status, and birth weight. Why low socioeconomic status? The reason being is because a low socioeconomic status is where the problem, or low socioeconomic status is where you eat terrible. People eat terribly in those areas. Why? Because the stores near them a lot of times will just have junk in them, or they might not have the car to be able to get to the grocery store, so they're using those little side stores that got junk in them. And then the food that they can afford, right, a lot of times has junk in it. It's drugs, it's not food, right? So I want you to be real clear on that. All right. Now, type 3 diabetes, again, is often used. Oh, okay. So this is key right here. This is key. I want y'all to get this. Type 3 diabetes is not recognized as a medical term, but when discussing the connection between diabetes and senescent cells, it is often used informally to refer to the potential role of accumulated senescent cells, also called zombie cells. Now, if you're on my Patreon, I did a whole video on zombie cells, right? And I deal with senescent cells as well. I deal with them in the what is that video? The balance oil video, which will be the Zenzino video. Make sure you watch that video. It is super important, right? I deal deeply with this, but I deal with it in the zombie cells. I deal with it also in my video on Patreon called Physical Immortality. You want to watch those. All right. Now, in contributing to the development and complications of type 2 diabetes, particularly through their impact on insulin resistance and tissue damage within the body, especially in adipose tissues and the pancreas where insulin is produced, essentially implying that a buildup of senescent cells could be a significant factor in the disease progression, similar to how type 1 and type 2 diabetes are categorized based on their underlying mechanisms. Okay? So senescent cells or zombie cells, just like it contributes to type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and now we also find type 3 diabetes, right? This is where xenogene comes in. So now what we're going to talk about is how to be able to heal this issue, okay? For the rest of this video and more videos like these, you can join us at patreon.com/health class. Again, that's patreon.com/health class. And join one of our paid tiers. Any of them will do. And you join one of those tiers, you can watch the rest of these videos, as well as all the other videos that I've produced, including my former health classes, which is 4 to 8 hours of information that can help you on your health journey to the top. All right. So I look forward to sharing that adventure with you. I look forward to seeing you at the top of your health journey. Peace.